All right, so the first text we're going to read in this unit is a Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift. It's a really famous satire. In fact, if you're going to learn about a satire, this is one of the first ones that is universally taught. Two of the objectives for this particular text is I can analyze satirical devices and I can understand the author's purpose. Satire can be a little tricky to understand author's purpose because you can't take it for face value, right? It's got a comedic effect to something that is serious. So analyzing satire. Satire is a literary technique in which institutions, practices, or behaviors are ridiculed for the purpose of bringing reform. So you take a real world situation and you ridicule it or you make fun of it in order to draw attention to it. Like, hey, this is a real problem. Authors typically write satire to comment on social and political issues and to advocate for improving society. If you look at the image on the right, so airport security check, you can see the guy's got a card. The top 3 light shades say okay, and anything darker says not okay. This is drawing attention to the fact that, and this is a few years old now, but the airport security was doing a disproportionate number of stop and search checks on people of color than they were whiter counterparts, right? And so Family Guy, which we've talked about before, picked up on this, as they do most mainstream and lower stream issues, and they satirized it because they made you laugh over, like, oh, haha, he's light color, he got okay, but it's a real problem, and it's a real problem that needs addressed. Satirists often use exaggeration and irony to cast a critical eye on human follies and shortcomings. So in this example, this is an over-exaggeration, right? They don't literally hold a card up to your face and, see the color of your skin and let you go. It's human bias that does this, but nonetheless, they're comparing it to this thing. Really commonly, we see satire in political cartoons, not this, even though this is a cartoon and it is political. It's not what I mean by political cartoon. I mean like those pictures that you see in the newspaper and in magazines. Cartoons, as in like Family Guy and South Park, do pick up on these things. The Cleveland Show is another one. I'm trying to think. American Dad. I think Family Guy does it the most. Simpsons is another really good one. That uses satire. But we see these things literally all over the place. Now, is this the best way to get social reform? Probably not. However, it can be extremely effective in addressing people that would not normally pick up a newspaper, for example, right? Your average Joe doesn't pick up a newspaper. They watch these weird cartoons. So at least it exposes them. So 2 types of satire: Juvenalian, which uses scathing, scornful tone and dark humor to criticize incompetence or corruption with scorn and outrage. So we're using this dark humor where it's funny, but you don't think it, it probably shouldn't be funny because it's very like villainesque. And we have this exaggerate, like this evil sort of outrage towards something. And then we have Horatian, which uses a playful, lighthearted tone to correct foolishness and vice with a combination of gentle mockery and sympathetic understanding. This is more, what does it mean to be lighthearted, right? Lighthearted means like you can kind of chuckle at this more. This is more of your Family Guy, like, ha ha ha, that's funny. It's true, but it's funny, right? The Juvenalian is like taken very seriously. I guess would be, that's my perception on the main difference between them. Here's an example of a political cartoon relating to a very particular shooting done by the police in the States. Genre elements of satire. It ridicules customs, behaviors, or institutions. The purpose is to improve society, and it's intended to be humorous. You are intended to chuckle a little bit, or a lot of it, depending on what it is. It often uses exaggeration, so we're taking something and making it over the top. And it employs verbal irony where, you say one thing, but you mean another. So for example, I might say, ha ha ha, oh no, it's okay, but really it's not okay, right? That is verbal irony. Next, we're going to look at analyzing heroic couplets. A heroic couplet is a pair of rhymed lines in iambic pentameter. We talked about a couplet before, a rhyming couplet. I know we spoke about this last year. An iambic pentameter is a metrical pattern of 5 feet or units. Each foot consists of 2 syllables, the first unstressed, the second stressed. So, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So in this, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. The U's above the words are unstressed and the slashes are stressed. And you naturally say these when you read, but this is how we indicate them when you're trying to find the different types of meter. In this particular one, one unstressed and one stressed is 1 foot. So we would draw a line here to indicate the foot. So here's 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. 1, 2, and you can split words, 3, 4, 5, etc. Right? A heroic couplet is the rhymed lines in iambic pentameter. So this line, if it were, typically they're back to back, right? So this line and this line would rhyme, and this line and this line would rhyme. They're 2 that go together, right? This one is not heroic couplet, but let's say if line 1 and line 3 were back to back, it would be. So analyzing satirical devices. Verbal irony occurs when writers say the opposite of what is meant. And I already explained this thing. Understatement occurs when the writer says less than is expected or appropriate. For example, we use this word in our normal speaking. If we say, like, if one person says, oh, that English test was really hard, another person could say, oh, that's an understatement. It was an abomination, whatever, right? Understatement is you're saying less than what is appropriate. You're trying to downplay it. The opposite would be an exaggeration, also called an overstatement or hyperbole. This occurs when a writer exaggerates the truth for emphasis or humorous effect. So I might say, every single person has this new iPhone, Mom. Like, I really need this iPhone. Every person has it. Does every person have this iPhone? No, probably 20% of the people have it. But, you might use that with your parents. Football, great example of exaggerations. Why do I say this? Because look at this dude. Look at this. Hot freaking mess. He is probably faking an injury. I actually don't know. I know that some of you will probably recognize this play because I remember it was really famous. But football, basketball, whatever, right? Players exaggerate in order to get penalties or to get flags. It's the same thing, except in writing, you have to look at, you have to imagine what's being said while you're reading. You can't watch it like a movie in front of your eyes, right? A contradiction occurs when a writer expresses 2 ideas that are in opposition to one another. You see this a lot in politics. People will be like, he's contradicting himself. Let's see if I can come up with an example of this on the fly, right? For example, with the stimulus checks in America right now, I might say, people need this money to survive. But then I might also say, no, people have enough money. Well, no, you can't need the money to survive and then have enough money at the same time. It doesn't work. Either one is true or the other is true. Both can't be true. A paradox is a statement that seems contradictory or absurd, but actually reveals some element of truth, and it's normally upon a closer analysis, right? This can be really confusing to identify because you read the statement and you're like, no, that's not true, but it really is. And so we'll look at more specific examples of this as we dig into our first text. Understanding author's purpose. We talk a lot about author's purpose, but I really do mean it when I say there's like an additional challenge behind satire, like identifying author's purpose with satire. Why do I say this? Because again, you have to do like the reading in between the lines. It's not face value. A modest proposal is written in the form of an argument for a public policy. Swift's purpose isn't to persuade people to accept the narrator's claim, which might seem confusing because an argument, typically you're trying to get the person to accept the claim. Instead, he uses the structure of an argument to attack British policies and the callousness of wealthy people in Ireland and England. As you read the text, consider whether Swift's satirical argument is an effective way to achieve his intended purpose. He writes his proposal in the form of an argument because this is the common style. Most people, if you're trying to get something done in government in this time, you write a pamphlet and you publish it and people read it and they take sides and it gets to government, right? He did that with a proposal kind of absurd. And we're going to get into this as we read, but do pay attention to the satirical elements of his argument. So critical vocab. On a separate piece of paper, define the following terms. You can actually just do this right in your notebook or in your Google Doc notes for now. Sustenance, rudiment, scrupulous, inducement, prodigious, collateral, encumbrance. These words must be written on a piece of loose leaf paper. This was for when we were actually in class. You guys could do it in Google Doc. It's fine. And they need to follow the below format. So with the number, underlined vocab word, the part of speech. So endued, for example, is a verb. You put the definition, and underneath it, you need to use the word in your own sentence. Do not copy a sentence you find online or the one from the book. You are creating your own sentence, okay? And this should be present in your notes. This will be graded later this week. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.